but kila mtu is entitled to his or her own opinion, so hawezi discriminate. Tuko hapa kusaidiana, tatusonge.
Definitely wachana hata na civic education, the education system to basic education, we are taught lies.
Okay, I know ongelea sciences na mathematics kwa haizi ongelea kuhusu hizo 1 + 1 is 2. Ataka ongelea the history, acha tucheki atasema aje.
Maybe the only true thing we are taught is the sciences and the mathematics.
Because that doesn't change. It's almost universal.
But history and government, we are just taught to be obedient, to be subservient to authority, not to question. It's as if, the history book is talking back to you and saying, this is how things have been, and this is how they will remain.
Again, I don't think it's about the history books. I think it's about the people in power. But think about it. I've not read many history books, just history books mingi, but the one me focus nayo sana ni the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. And people involved in the book and people who have met him say that's true. That's right. He was locked up. He fought for the country. Watu wake wako amuona wanashangaa dadi yako wapi and everything. Akadivorce wife yake because ako like, why you focus on the country rather than the family? It's not a job, it's God's job. Bro, hizo zilikuwa word zake. It's not your job, it's God's job. So achana nayo. So unaona mkishaanza kubishana hivyo inakuwa saa, you don't understand each other. But history wise, the history books, the recorded history, I think it's available. Patrice Lumumba, Mandela, Gaddafi. I don't know kwa kuna vitabu za Gaddafi, but they should. Tunafaa tujue knowledge yake. Jomo Kenyatta, Dedan Kimathi. The people who are other people who are famous for fighting for our countries, our African countries. I think it's just a mentality formed by culture we create in our societies, a culture that is created by the people in power. So ukisoma your history books, utaanza na your history book kuinfluence wazo hiyo, but really is the person next to you who is above you, who is telling you that it will always remain the same. Ipo itaki make sense kama angesema they distort the history. They say wrong thing, they say, or they try to explain the history and say, for the people who fought, it's not a right way to go about that. For the people who had the good beliefs and the good deeds and actually wanted to help the country and the information was distorted, that's another thing. But saying that the history books make us believe certain things and how now we follow the society and cultures, I don't think that's right. But let's go. I think it's a very educating interview. Hapa ni arguments too. That's why I'm saying I think that's wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I've not experienced. Experience is the best teacher. Because now if people started to get into their minds that they are right and they are the only ones who are right now, and remember human beings are selfish, and now you have power, that's a dangerous thing, because now everything you think you are right, which is not. It's not true. We are imperfect, so we need to listen to each other. Doesn't matter how wrong we think the people next to us are, just need to solve the problem. The only way to solve a problem is to come up with a solution. That's the only way. Let's continue on educating ourselves.
So that so many people are hopeless because of that, and also it social engineers us to accept mediocrity.
Yeah, I think social engineering is the right word. It's about the history books. how the history has influenced us to think that this is the only path we can follow. I think it's just the people in power, structural engineers of human beings, Kenyans. So maybe ndo itasonga because they are the one who controls the system. So nafaa tukae rada tusonge.
So our standards for governance and leadership ziko chini sana because of what we learn in school.
No, that's wrong. I've experienced the system of education, so I know that's wrong. What we learn from school, no bro, that's wrong. Bro, education helps you open up your mind, like your problem solving, your memory. It's not even about what you are reading or learning. No, it's about your struggle, the struggle. Now you get educated, so inamaanisha when you pass a test, then inamaanisha that's problem solving, that's also memory. There are other factors also, but inamaanisha now you can think critically and make decisions that are wise. So that's wrong, Kibaso. Let's continue.
How do you change that? You change the whole system?
It's very difficult because the person who can change the curriculum is the government, and the people benefiting are the politicians who run the government. So it's highly unlikely. It has to take a civilian revolution. People in power.
A civilian revolution. The same civilians being controlled by a corrupt government, which we know very little of. We are the ones who can fix the system. Nah, bro. Tuendelee though.
Can never disadvantage themselves by informing the public what lie.
Mpata hiyo. But now they are afraid of the consequences that tulikuwa tumeongelea before.
As they've been telling to stay in power, but the public can become wiser and then remove those who are in power and replace them with people who are better. But it begins with a wise public.
Again, wrong. You know why? Because nimelelewa. It's like saying good parenting comes from good kids. Yo, kuna shit kaa hiyo? No, it's good parenting comes from good parents. Doesn't matter how ama personality ya mtu iko aje, hajui anything. Hiyo kituko juu ya kichwa, hiyo kituko ndani ya kichwa yake ni memory card, inafaa kujazwa. Na unaijaza akikuangalia what you're doing, leading by example. Eventually, even if it will be hard, of course it will be hard for kids who have like difficult personalities kuliko wenye ni easier, but eventually after a consistent period itawaka. Consistency always works. Hiyo ni memory card, inafaa tu kujazwa. So you can't say ati sisi ndo tunafaa to change the system. No, we don't even know what goes on. We don't have the information we require. So how can you say that we are the ones who can change the system? We can't, you know. Let's continue.
Good voters. So it doesn't begin with good leaders, it begins with good voters. So not jumping from fire to fire, you know. From, you know, you're just having bad leaders back to back. Yeah, mlikuwa na Gavana Lusaka, mkaboeka na yeye, mkaleta Wangamati. Huyu Gavana Lusaka mwenye alinunua wheelbarrow moja sijui ni 1 million, tena ndio mnarudisha. Halafu sasa
and now they want the other guy. Didmas. Now they want Didmas.
Bro, I know so little about politics. Hakuna mtu nimejua hapa nani. And that's how we are as a country. Shut up. Because now you're focused on building yourself, and then there's someone who is bringing you down. na haifai kuwork hivyo. So I choose to focus on one thing, which is myself, because the government has forsaken me, but let's continue.
Ni kama your sister who keeps falling into bad relationships and there's nothing you can do about it because she's in love.
That's fine.
I have a sister like that.
Oh, please don't talk about it on air.
Yeah, and that's it, bro. Power is an entity that makes you greater than the person next to you, which means you can manipulate him or her, which means you can control him or her. So the only way to change the system is to change the system. It's not possible kila mtu akue wiped out. Then people wenye hawana hii culture, people who are being born now waingie to the system because wao hawako influenced by the society. You get? But now it cannot happen like that. I think, and the sad thing, it's a sad thing to say, but the only way is for people who have the leadership skills, not political skills, they should be ready to die. If you try to educate your civic education of Angelea, the society, the truth, you will utafanya ile kitu. No? There's a difference between leadership and politics. Leadership is a value. Politics ni kukatiana. A good leader akona certain values. The fruits and the fruits and the gifts of the Holy Spirit, like type shit, vitu kama hizo. Politicians, for you to get into the government you need politics, but for you to lead a good country you need good leadership skills. So we'll never really know who's a good leader without the knowledge, without the leaders in the government trickling down the knowledge to us. We will never have good leaders until the good leaders decide to risk and do it and be ready for the consequences of the choices they have made. Itashikwa hivyo. It's sad, but it's true. I think it's true. And with that, tupatane kesho. It's MK day 2, tunaendelea.